Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm the Ox.
And I'm the rat.
Where's your rat sound to accompany your rat intro?
Squeak, squeak.
It's funny. I have a new dog, and we're trying to feed her really well, and like all natural and all that junk, just like me. And we got her. My mom went out and got her a a an ox. No, it was a bull penis, and she's
That's
carrying.
healthy.
Yeah, she's carrying it around the house. It just looks like it could be like a rawhide stick, but it's not rawhide. And you wouldn't notice it. And then when I knew what it was, I was like, oh yeah, there it is. I'm just watching my little puppy like walk around the house with this bull penis. It's pretty funny. Te- Technically, it's an ox penis, isn't it? Is an ox a bull? No.
Um, yeah, I think they're the same thing.
Hmm.
No,
Mhm.
maybe.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, it is. Because I had to get the picture for the ox and the rat.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good enough. Okay. Well, let's get started because I know we don't have much time. We're actually we usually do this in reverse, and I'm usually starting my work day, but you're about to start yours, right?
Yes, I am.
Hmm.
And I got about maybe 20 minutes, so this will be a bit shorter of an episode.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get started then. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. I too am ready. This one's called The Hares and the Frogs. Hares, as you know, are very timid. The least shadow sends them scurrying in fright to a hiding place. Once they decided to die rather than live in such misery. But while they were debating how best to meet death, they thought they heard a noise and in a flash were scampering off to the warren. On the way they passed a pond where a family of frogs was sitting among the reeds on the bank. In an instant, the startled frogs were seeking safety in the mud. Look, cried a hare, things are not so bad after all, for here are creatures who are even afraid of us. You want to guess the moral of this tale?
Um, okay, so let me do a little breakdown. I was half thinking about other things, so let's see if I got this right. Um, some frogs sitting somewhere. I don't know if they mentioned. And then rabbits came along and the frogs got scared, went in the
Yeah,
water.
essentially.
All right. Easy one. Um, so the moral would be even weak things can be scary too. Happy
Cool.
Halloween.
Where's your spooky sound? What was that? All right. Yeah, no, you're pretty bang on there. It's however unfortunate we may think we are, there's always someone worse off than ourselves. So perspective is everything, I suppose, is another way of putting it. And I usually start these things, but I'll give you the floor if you wish to begin. However unfortunate we may think we are, there is always someone worse off than ourselves.
It's interesting that they think about the like being scared, I guess, running away. That's worse off. I guess being weaker is worse off in this fable, right?
Well, feeling weaker, right? Because being afraid is a feeling, not necessarily a reality.
I suppose the frog could have stood up and jumped at the rabbit a bit.
But yeah, there is an element of weakness there. There is an inherent difference between a hare and a frog, strength and whatever wise. So yeah, what
Hmm.
say ye?
So, okay, so what was it again?
However unfortunate we may think we are, there is always someone worse off than ourselves.
Oh yeah, that's well, living abroad
Ah, I'm glad you went
and
there. That's where I was gonna go. Go ahead.
traveling abroad too. That is recommended by me and millions of other people. Um, I've been all over Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, all that, and into Africa as well, to a few countries. So just going there, and it's not like in the fable where the rabbit's happy, but it gives you an eye opening as to how other people live. So hopefully you're a little bit less whiny and complainy when you got problems of your own, because we have it pretty good overall. At least I do.
Yeah, it's the whole first world problems thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I've got a lot of entry points on this, and I'll second that. I think one of the problems that people have today, having taught here and abroad, is the relative safety that privilege gives people. Like people just don't need to worry about being worried, and that's quite a luxury in and of itself. Even waking up and knowing that you have food is quite the privilege, and some depending on where you are, knowing where you go to sleep and where you go to school, for that matter. But yeah, we've been around, right? I think that the trip that really did it for me was when we went to Myanmar.
Mm-hmm.
That that was eye opening. But even living it for as long as I did in certain places, it was 5 years. I was just so used to being like, this is my new normal now. That is normal, right? Changes your perspective. I don't know whether that's for good or bad, but yeah, having the perspective that people lack today, getting the opportunity to travel abroad and have a career abroad for at least for a short period of time, I think is really important. And I think it goes way beyond, tourism, right? I think tourism is part of the problem, because you get funneled into the tourist traps and the areas that the people at the government or whomever wants you to go, and you don't get to see what it's really like. But I think in a lot of those trips, I mean, largely due to a lack of organization and planning, me and you got to see a lot of things that a lot of other people didn't, and I feel better off for having done that, because my problems don't seem like that big of a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point about. There's probably a lot of people that just sit in Thailand at a resort and don't really see anything. Not that you have to go wander into like some shanty town or something like that, but definitely gives you a better understanding of how these people, like, where they're going after they're done serving you your breakfast or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
You just wake up, get everything handed to you.
Yeah, and I don't know. Beyond that, like, my personal story, of course. I'm like the lucky. I got lucky with my cancer, right? Like, could have been something else. I don't know if it works that way. Like, oh, you get this cancer, or you get that one. Probably specific reasons why I got the specific kind I did. But it was the highest survivability of lymphoma. It was the most treatable. I'm lucky in that sense. And then somebody else is born, and then a baby's born with leukemia, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you get some people, you just get dealt a bad hand, right? And beyond that, like, just the sheer luck of being who I am on a daily basis, being where I am. Like, I'm talking about I was talking to you beforehand, like thinking of buying a house, or going into that area and making this move back to my homeland permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how I'm like pitying myself sometimes. like, oh well, wouldn't it be nice if, oh, I wish I had this, while there are people living on the streets. So it's all relative, I suppose. I'm not usually the kind of person that, what's that commandment? Covet.
Yep.
Covets other people's stuff. I'm pretty good with very little, but it just brings it home that, like, I've I've got it pretty damn good, even despite everything that's happened.
Yeah, the hard part about having these experiences and just living your normal day to day life is you get used to it, like you were saying before, and then those little life lessons wear away pretty quickly. Like you might go to a place and be like, "Ah, oh, damn, this is how people are living," or "Wow, we got it good," or whatever. And then by the time you get back from your vacation or wherever you went, you're just back to normal. So I guess the key for us in those rabbits is to remember that fact. And when you get down or when you get complaining about something, then we got to remember, I guess it's not so bad.
Yeah. Well, studying cooperative learning at the moment, and a lot of things that we're touching on in class or in the readings have come across as part of this DEI, diversity and inclusion, equality and inclusion movement, and I can't help but find a lot of parallels between them. Like, they were saying, okay, so Canada's super diverse, right? I mean, nobody would argue that Canada's not a fairly multicultural country, right?
At least in the metropolis.
Right, and that's a good point to bring up already. But then you zoom in even closer. Okay, me, I'm super white. My 23andMe profile will tell you that. But it's interesting. Like, I lived in England. I lived in other countries and worked there, and I live here. And it's not. You realize, and studies show that it's not about being surrounded by diversity or others or other experiences that provides you with the empathy that we all need. It's being I don't want to use the word forced, but I think there's an element to it, but like it's having to interact, having a quality of interaction, not a quantity of it, that changes people's perspectives. We have these selection biases that it's like, people who don't live in a diverse neighborhood, they're right away, they're never going to get to a certain level of empathy. People of color, for example, right? Whereas, if you work in a diverse environment, that's another level that you're forced to interact with people and you have to talk to them. You have to live with them. But it could be your workplace too, right? Your workplace, you could have a very diverse workplace on paper, but everybody works individually, right? So that doesn't move the needle. And what we really need is, I don't want to say enforced, although I think there's an element of it, but it's having quality interactions with people. And I wonder to what extent I have done that, even though I have traveled so much. I think that from my perspective, all of those experiences were a lot of it was superficial, and even that helped. But I wasn't like I was hanging out with locals all the time and talking to them and partying with them. And that did happen sometimes. But you know what I mean? It's the quality and not the superficial quantity of it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good little lesson there. Yeah, because my workplace is fairly diverse. We got people from mostly America, but a lot of African American people working at my job or company. But like you say, I see them every day, but I don't really necessarily hang out. Like maybe one of the coworkers, maybe like once a month with another group, which isn't really diverse. And yeah, I think being forced, one way you're kind of saying that is like just a friend. I think one way to break into that kind of like experiencing other people, like say for example, somebody who's gay or whatever, bisexual or something. Early on in university, I met this dude that was, and you're just like, okay, just a normal guy. Not that I really had many prejudices before, but I mean, I didn't really know any gay people, so it's just, that is going to kind of soothe whatever maybe judgments you have, or anger, or whatever you might have, or prejudice you might have against somebody once you know them as a human being.
Now, there's a danger there, and you made a good, important qualification. Now, it can go the opposite direction, right? If all
Sure.
of your interactions with people are, not even interactions per se, but like if your ideas and understanding come through a filter like media, right? There are reasons why people of color, for example, are overrepresented in these negative contexts. That is not their fault, right? But that, for a majority of people, I would say, of my skin color and my background, is their entire context, right? And in
Mm-hmm.
that case, it reinforces stereotypes that you have heard. And stereotypes are they're very normal for people to have, right? They're like biases, and we bias toward naturally, right? We put things into categories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not justifying it but on a moral ground. I'm saying it's a biological imperative, or we need to make sense of the world, so that's what we do. We categorize shit. But
Mm-hmm.
if your categories are biased like that through some kind of filter that is not representative of reality, that is your reality, right? So like you're
Yeah.
saying, you could have a very diverse workplace and still harbor these prejudices, even though you encountered somebody in your day-to-day operations or your day-to-day activities, right? So there's a real danger there, and I think, and somebody is going to come and find me and kill me from the States here, I'm sure, but like I think that is what is amiss in the United States, and to a degree in Canada and in other Western countries where we have problems with immigration, is that immigrants are ghettoized and they're put into areas, and people who have power are never required to interact with them. And these are the people who end up making our laws and determining how we think through a variety of means, right? So I think that is the problem. It's not that there aren't people there, it's the fact that there's an effective filter that people have, and they're able to wall themselves off, literally in some cases, right? From what's outside.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what makes Canada work, as far as I've heard, is there's less ghettoization of, like, there's
Oh
more
yeah.
mixing of
Mhm.
immigrants, and maybe that's because of the selection process. We have people that maybe are able to start at a different level, or whatever. But if you look at like France or Paris or whatever, I think literally there are sections of like pockets are outside of the city, and
England,
people
man,
just,
yeah.
yeah.
Whew.
So it's a lot harder to integrate into the society. And then you have well, for France anyways, they're, from what I've heard, they're particular about being French speaking or not French speaking. So then you got that against you.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think it's true, and that's where I've come like full circle on this thing because of this one class. Although I've been complaining a lot about my MEd, and I'll continue to, because that sure is a hell of a lot of money to pay for somebody to say, these are readings I think you should read, and I will see you once a week.
Yeah.
When I put it together, like that's what I'm paying for essentially. But anyways, um, yeah, I think. Where was I going with that? I lost that. What did I say beforehand? Oh,
Ghettoization.
right, yeah. So I've come full circle. Like affirmative hiring policies and all of that stuff. I used to have some questions about it, but after reading like the actual research, and I mean like quantified, like research, not meta-analysis or something like that, like real papers, real studies, there's probably an important role to be played by the state in ensuring that there is some degree of forced equality. or equity of opportunity. Those are two tricky words. But equity of opportunity and some kind of mechanism to force, again, tough, difficult word, but encourage people to interact with one another if we intend to have a successful society, because we ain't having babies. So we want to continue that. We gotta figure out this immigration situation.
Yeah, and then like you say, you have to actually, I work with a kind of diverse staff, but I don't really interact with them. Should I be forced to interact? I don't know. But maybe the one thing I should be, I guess, forced to do is have an open mind about it. Like if one of those staff members is annoying or whatever, that doesn't mean the whole group is going to be annoying. So you have to have an open mind about, like you're saying about your biases. You can't have one person reinforce that bias and then just solidify it where you're like, okay, now everybody's like this, which seems common sense. But I mean, if you have one interaction with somebody that's negative, that might last for a lifetime, potentially.
And they do. And that's the other key part that's so difficult and so important. And we say it all. I say it all the time as an educator. You got to be able to reflect, and you need to be able to identify. You need to know yourself before you can understand others. That's for certain. But hey, we're going overtime now. I think you've got a life to live. So do I. We'll call this an abbreviated session. So what say ye? However unfortunate we may think we are, there is always someone worse off than ourselves. Yes or no?
Yes. Now, should it make you feel better? It's a weird thing that's going to make you feel better.
No, it's not, because it's all relative, right? You know, my concerns about getting a house are really valid. You know, they're quite valid, but they're an order of magnitude less concerning than someone else's, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yay or nay?
100%. What could I say? You know, the guy with the miracle cancer. I'm lucky. I was lucky to have the cancer I had. How else could I vote on this? So for that, on that note, I'm with the frogs, man. Or sorry, the hares. Look, things are not so bad after all. Here are creatures who are even afraid of us. Yes.
There you go. There you have it. So, remember, it's not so bad.
Yeah, true. It ain't so bad, man. Actually, that's been a mantra of mine since I got into meditation. This too shall pass. Got it. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, man. Well, you get your day started. Say howdy to anybody we still actually know in common, which is probably nobody. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Good one.
All right. Have a good night.
Peace.
Later.